Next, we look at proportions. We've kind of done this already because really a proportion, what you're doing, you're creating an equivalent fraction. This time we'll look at it as though we're solving though, so we're going to introduce a couple of new tools that you can use. I'm going to give you the shortcuts right now. We will later see why the shortcuts are true when we're taking a look at some of the algebra topics that we cover. So we'll start by talking about what the goal is here. We're trying to solve for the unknown, which in this case is the letter N. Just think of it as a question mark, right? That's the unknown. And we're trying to say that how did 6 grow to become 24 by multiplication? So if you think about it, 6 was multiplied by 4 to get to 24. So what number multiplied by 4 would get to be 8? So the result's going to be 2, but it's not always, you're not always able to do it mentally. So let's take a look at the process. Right, so what we need to do is we need to isolate this unknown n, and that means it needs to be on the top of the fraction, which it is, and we just need to isolate it from this number 6. So we're going to take advantage of the cross product rule. And what that allows us to do is we are able to move things diagonally across the equal sign, as long as it's just a fraction on each side of the equals. That's an important point. But as long as there's one fraction on each side of the equal sign, moving things diagonally is mathematically valid. Again, this is a shortcut. We'll explain more about it later, but this is just so we can get the job done right now. Right, so what's going to happen is if the n needs to be isolated, the 6 needs to come up for multiplication. And n is equal to then, all right, so 6 is going to come up to multiply by 8 over 24. And now we can just evaluate that because we've isolated n, so we can solve for its value. You can just use a calculator for this. 6 times 8 is 48 divided by 24. You could reduce 6 and 24 first, so it's whatever way you like to do it. But one way or another, I'll just do 6 times 8 is 48 divided by 24. Well, the result is 2. And that's how you solve proportions. It should be pretty similar to the stuff that we've covered within fractions already. The next type of proportion we look at has something a little different going on. We still have one unknown that we can solve for. That unknown still needs to be isolated, but it also needs to be in the top of the fraction. So it's time for me to show you the next shortcut. We'll explain the algebra behind the shortcut later, but for now, let's just get the job done. So what some people do is go 8 times 2 divided by 1 to get the result, and that works as well. So if you like that way, you can use it. The way that I think about it is that I'm going to flip both sides, the fractions on both sides, and this is mathematically valid. Again, it's just a shortcut that we'll explain later, but it works for now, and I think it's pretty easy to follow, so we're going to stick with that system. Now what we have is the unknown is on the top, but it's not isolated. So in the previous section, we learned that we can move the 8 diagonally across the equal sign, and we're going to end up with 2 over 1 times 8 is equal to the k value, and I should change back to black here. That means, and I'll keep it in order, that 2 times 8 is 16 over 1 is just 16 is what the k value is worth. Some people not comfortable with the unknown on the right hand side, you might choose to rearrange it that k is equal to 16, but they're both correct one way or another. And if we go back to the proportion and understand them, a half is equal to, right, a half on the left is equal to 8 over 16. So the math works out. And you'll see that, as difficult as we're going to make these in this section, is that we add in some decimal numbers. So what you're going to do is the exact same process. I won't go through the full example, but 14.4 would come up to multiply by 5.6 and then divide by 16.3. That's going to give you the result of your unknown value x.